And the funny thing is, I've always heard this phrase, representation matters, right? Like just you hear representation matters, for a long time. And, it always felt to me like something that, yes, I understood, but I never felt it when it came to like cultural representation. It just didn't strike a chord for me. But it was only when I saw Lil Miquela's boobs and I was like, wow, those are the first time I've seen like a chest that reminds me of my own presented in a positive light. And I was like, representation matters. And all like my like decade long obsession with like getting bigger boobs just disappeared like that. It was literally a light switch.
On the Rise, behind the lyrics, beyond the music. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this podcast, On the Rise, Behind the Lyrics, Beyond the Music. I am Gina Lam. We are exploring incredible, emerging, and established artists in the music industry who share a passion for so many things, making meaningful art, creating great music, a connection with their Asian heritage, and a role in changing, shaping communities and societies. Today, we get to talk to a good friend of mine whom I've known for so many years, Aiko Tomi. Aiko Tomi is known for her big energy and unexpected lyricism. Hyper acute, internet tinged pop songs are self-reclamation, and she's got a neon colored social commentary on disposable culture and the ultra connected, always online presence that puts ego and image above all else. This is going to be an amazing conversation. Aiko, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me. This is exciting.
Oh my goodness. I'm so excited to hear about your new project. Can you introduce yourself to our audiences?
Hey, yeah, I'm Aiko. I'm a songwriter and artist. And I don't know. Like I'm not really good at introducing myself like this. Like, hi, this is my vibe, but I'm just pretty energetic and I write things that I think pretty much all my songs are very lived through experiences.
You know what? Actually, Aiko, since you're going to be so humble right now and not introduce your full self, can I do it?
Sure.
Aiko has this incredibly bold physicality in both her visuals and her live performances. I've definitely caught you on YouTube, just out of this world energy. And she encourages all audiences to embrace their own version of uninhibited expression. And I really want to stop there for a second because I want to talk about this uninhibited expression and what that means. What is it? What's your goal when you're making these concerts with your music for the audiences?
So without it sounding cheesy and like, I hope this doesn't come off like, oh, everyone's talking about authenticity, right? But for me, it's alignment. As you've known, like we've seen each other do music for a long time. I started out as a classically trained pianist and composer. And then I started writing songs at the piano. I love my training and, the theoretical knowledge that I gained through that and just attention to detail and that kind of thing. But my personality is, I've always been a little bit weird, really energetic, just kind of out there and spazzy. And there was always this disconnect between, I think, my former music and my stage presence. People would kind of tell me like, oh, wow, you play this sad, heartbreaking song. And, it's funny because when I first started playing piano, I played all the classics and stuff. We tend to lean towards things that we're good at because, echo chamber, we all like positive feedback. And one of the things I was able to do from a very young age was play very lyrically at the piano. And I would maybe, win competitions and stuff because people would be like, wow, like you play that Chopin ballad and nocturne so beautifully. You make me cry with, how beautiful and emotional that was. So I really leaned into that. Even when I started writing songs, it was all like heartbreak and like, I wrote about relationships I didn't have sometimes. And it's just like a lot more drama than needed maybe. And it was just coming from a more sentimental place, which I'm not saying that you can't be sentimental, but it's just my actual way of being. I'm not actually that sentimental in that way, if that makes sense. So I think I've always wanted to explore something different. I mean, I've done a bit of dance music before, a little bit of drum and bass, different kinds of pop music, synth pop, but I just don't think that lyrically and subject matter wise, it was never aligned. And that's why I'm so excited about this project, because it's the closest I've ever been. I mean, like, we're always evolving, we're always changing. And what I think as artists, we all try to go towards our current truth. And I feel like this project is the closest to my truth that I've ever been. And everyone's truths are different and everyone's expression is different. And that's why I feel so strongly. And I feel like the reception to this material is very different from how it was in the past.
I love how you said everybody is searching for their real truth and their current truth, and how you moved from this classical journey into what you're doing now. And I was reading a couple of articles about you, and I'm really resonating with this description of you as how I know you as well as a person. Empowering, undeniably fun. This collection represents triumphant coming of age. I love this part. A neon-colored celebration of self-reclamation infused with a giddy, romantically hopeful spirit. And I'm just thinking, when I think about your music and the shows that I've watched, that's so much of that resonates with me because there's so much energy, so much playfulness. Your outfits are so inspiring. And I feel like as an audience member, it really inspires me to look deeply within myself and say, what is it that this artist is making me feel? How is it that I'm connecting authentically with myself? Because I can see this artist on stage is absolutely connecting authentically with herself. So I'm really curious about the muses or the inspiration for the music behind and the style that you're coming toward for this new project. Aiko Tomi, can you tell us about people or sounds that have really inspired you?
I think during the pandemic, I think all of us were feeling this very boxed in sort of, this feeling of just being in a cage, right? And during that time, Charlie XCX came out with an album during the pandemic. It was really lovely. And I was starting to listen to, like, maybe in 2019, 2020, I started listening to some more hyperpop. And I really liked that because it reminded me, it just felt like the new evolution. It felt really spazzy. It was like high energy. It had a lot of like sort of glitchy sounds, trap beats, and that kind of stuff. And it's like a lot of the things that I resonated with. And the producer that I worked with, Andrew, he, was also inspired by some of the same types of things. And we both come from a classical background, which was, I think, very it just made for a good fit. And actually, he inspired me to write an album because I was actually just writing a string of singles. And he was like, well, I think you should do an album because you maybe want to, present like a full project. Like, what are you doing with all these singles? And I'm like, okay, true. So I wrote this whole album in a very, very short period of time. I feel like a couple of months or something like that. And, of course, it took a little, as like with music, it takes a little longer to sort of finesse everything. But all the songs were written in a very short period of time. And also during pandemic, we had a lot of time to reflect or just kind of think back on your life and experiences.
Okay, well, we're going to get a chance to listen to some of that music that you and Andrew put together. And before we get to that, I'm really curious about your name, Aiko Tomi. Sounds a little bit Japanese.
Yeah, Aiko Tomi. It's Japanese, exactly.
Can you tell how you got that name?
Yeah, of course. So Aiko it means child of love, and Tomi means wealth or abundance. Aiko Tomi is actually a namesake from my grandmother. And I lost my dad. Wow, it's coming up 10 years. It's crazy. But I lost my dad and he lost his mother rather tragically. And I lost my dad pretty suddenly and tragically. And the namesake is sort of like me remembering him, remembering her. And I just love the name so much because Aiko means, child of love, and Tomi means abundance. And I feel like I'm always abundant in energy and in ideas and with love, right? And there's definitely sort of like a childlike quality that I feel like I have. I'm playful and high energy, and I always love having fun. I love cute stuff, all the kawaii things. And I think it's just a name that was so perfect to use for this project.
Mm-hmm. And I definitely don't want to get too deep here, but when you were telling that story, I got shivers. I was almost imagining as if not only, your soul in you feeding your life and your music and your personality and all of that, but the sense of your father and your father's mother also living within you. So this abundance is coming not only from yourself, but from all the generations that are before you that loved you and that are part of you and that you loved. So
absolutely. I feel like freaking like Avatar, like Avatar, the Last Airbender. Remember when you're the Avatar and like they all live through you? I don't know. I just got a flash of that when you were saying that. But I mean, with my dad, he had so much childlike wonder, even like, like the entire time that I knew him, he just has this childlike innocence. And I love that. And I feel like there's a part of that lives through me. And it's, it's really sweet. And I definitely appreciate the influence of where I came from I don't think about it every day, of course, but it's like when I get a minute and I reflect, I'm like, wow, this is, we're all of us, like we're just such a product of our experiences and, our families and like where we came from. And I feel like our truths, the artistic expression that we come up with is also a mirror reflection of that too.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's the role of an artist, not only to kind of express what they're feeling honestly, but also to create experiences for the audiences around them. And so for us to be always inspired to look into, find our inner play, our inner child, I mean, that's it's so rewarding for people who are around. So that's incredible. I'm also reading about how your music is super intuitive and it's textural. And I've heard this description of you where you're like a musician and a lab scientist. And I love just the lyrics and the arrangements and how you attack songs like a 3D puzzle. Is there a song that you want to talk about today? Because we'd love to listen to one.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I feel like two of the songs that I feel really strongly about are Monolids and Handful. Those ones they're very significant to me because I feel like I struggled a lot with self-acceptance. And I feel like a lot of people go through this as well, especially with beauty standards. I mean, I know right now it's like ever since Crazy Rich Asians and Everything Everywhere All at Once, like, there's more Asians right now in media, but growing up, there wasn't. And I struggled so much with that growing up. And I still feel like it's something that we're still sort of carving this path for Asians to be more represented in many industries. So I feel like Monolids, Dangyinpi, like the eyes that I was born with, and Handful, it's a song about having a small chest. Those two are quite special to me. Even though it's like, like if someone's just hearing me talk about this, it's like, okay, why are you so shallow? Why are you so hung up about physical attributes? But it's like, no. These things really affected me growing up and were a big part of my psyche and affected my self-worth for a long time.
And I think that a lot of these feelings that people have, they're pretty self-conscious, and these topics may not be discussed so much, and maybe on the surface they seem like they're superficial, but in fact they've got such deep roots, because when things are felt and not expressed, then they don't. However, when things are expressed, you know exactly where to categorize them, where to put them. It's like, this feeling goes here and this expression goes there. It's right, it's wrong, it's okay, it's relatable to that person. But when they're not expressed, then what do we do as they sit in the vessel of ourselves?
I mean, sorry, I think they are actually quite expressed, but through action, maybe not with people, being so publicly expressive about it. So, but by that, I mean, there's like $1 billion industry of like breast enhancement and eyelid surgery, right? Especially in Asia. I mean, like the amount of people getting double eyelid surgery is staggering. Like it's almost like a coming of age right for a lot of people.
You know what? I totally hear what you're saying. When I was thinking about it before, I was imagining this place of reservation to talk about it out of our own bodies, saying things like, I've got a monolid, this is how I feel about it, or I've got a small chest, a big chest, a that chest, this is how I feel about it. But you're absolutely right. Like the industries shape so much of society, and all these conversations are happening on top levels, medium levels, underneath ground levels. So there's a lot of different ideas that are kind of floating through and affecting us. I'd love to listen to Handful, actually. So why don't we just let the audience have a listen to that one, and then we'll come back and we're going to talk about that a little bit more.
Amazing.
You're a motor heart, I'm so sensitive. You'll feel like a
Okay, Aiko, so we just heard Handful, and this got so much playful energy supporting it. And I think that there's a lot of really meaningful content that's kind of the foundation of it. Could you talk a little bit more about where that song came from and some of your writing process?
Oh, absolutely. So growing up, and I guess like, watching anime, I always just wanted like anime boobs. They were so big. And I just couldn't wait for my pair to grow in, and they never did. So puberty came and went, didn't come. And then I guess, middle school, people would tease me about my chest. And then that just kind of created like a little complex, right? So I feel like a lot of Asian girls can relate to this. It's like, if you have a small chest, people tell you drink papaya milk. Right. So I drank all the papaya milk. I drank all the papaya juice, all the papaya milk. I went to those, like, those Chinese malls where like there's like Asian brothizes, and like there's like these older ladies teaching you how to scoop your boobs, like, the lift and the scoop. So I remember, just like all those things. Like I tried everything. Like I literally tried everything, and then it just caused a lot of body dysmorphia, and I had all these like crazy thoughts where, I mean, now they're crazy in retrospect, but they really weighed on me, just my confidence, like my body confidence. Like I would think, my life would be so much better if only I had, like, come on, I'm not asking for so much, like just give me a small B cup, like I'd be so happy with just a small B cup. But no, like they're just A's. And like sometime in late 2020, my friend showed me this social media account, Lil Michaela, and she's this digital influencer who, she's not, a real human being. She's 3D animated beautifully, and she's like this cool girl, and she's just fabulous. She has like all these cool friends, and she wears all these like amazing outfits, many of which showcase her tiny boobs. And the funny thing is, I've always heard this phrase, representation matters. Right. Like just you hear representation matters, for a long time. And, it always felt to me like something that, yes, I understood, but I never felt it when it came to like cultural representation. It just didn't strike a chord for me. But it was only when I saw Lil Michaela's boobs, and I was like, wow, those are the first time I've seen like a chest that reminds me of my own, presented in a positive light. And I was like, representation matters. And all like my like decade long obsession with like getting bigger boobs just disappeared like that. It was literally a light switch. And so Handful, sorry, I tend to go on these tangents. So Handful, I had written the first part of Handful many years ago as a joke. So I wrote itty bitty titties and a peach, I defy gravity on a beach, cherries on my pancakes, want to eat, I ain't blocking at the POV. And like, meaning like my car. I wrote the first verse almost as a joke. I was writing it almost like a tongue in cheek, like, haha, isn't this funny? But when I had this shift in perspective, I was like, no, like this is a very real thing. I feel really quite powerful, and I feel very blessed. Like I've realized that there are perks to having A cups. And the fact that I jump around the way that I do, I never even think about my chest like in a physical way. Like I know a lot of my friends who, I would envy how beautiful their boobs look in a dress, for example, but it might cause them back pain, or they'll really have to think about things when they're exercising. Like you have to wear a certain kind of bra or something to make things not spill out. So I realized, wow, like I actually spent so much time being very emo and very upset over something that I should have appreciated all along. And yeah, just kind of like stepping into that appreciation made me complete the song. I just wanted the production of it. I wanted it to be like super crazy and kind of like sexy and powerful. So yeah, that's how the song came about.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all that. And like I see this all as vulnerability, and I find that when people are vulnerable with their audiences and with themselves, it really opens up the conversation for people to have us as well with themselves and with others. So I really appreciate that. And I also want to say that earlier I was laughing when you were describing your, the going into the Chinese malls and having older generations teach you how to scoop your boobs and drinking the milk. I was laughing because I know what you mean. I mean, this is also my experience. Kind of, this is something that is part of, the culture I grew up with as well. So that's why I was laughing, and it was great. And I also want to take a moment to kind of reframe what you're saying. I hope this resonates with you. But your songs tackle a range of themes, from embracing your Asian eyes and monolids. And I love how Handful is really a song about body positivity and coming to acceptance with your body. I love that message. And
you know what? And I was going to say, I still absolutely adore anime boobs and big boobs, and I think they're glorious. But I also love my own boobs too. Like, it's kind of, I'm not saying like, wow, like having small boobs is better. Like, it's not about that. It's like, you know what? I had a massive change in perspective about the body that I have. And it's interesting because it's like when I'm playing the song, there's so many girls or women even, I played this once and at a place, and my friend's mom was there, and my friend said that they were kind of worried that their mom would kind of be horrified, like, you're talking about boobs, what the hell, right? Like, there's a lyric in there that says like, commando just in case I sit on your face, you can have a taste. I'm like, it's kind of spicy. But the mom was just vibing, and like she was really, just dancing around to it and having so much fun. And I thought, wow, this woman in her 60s is having what looks like the time of her life. It made me really happy. And then a younger girl said, I wish I had this song when I was going through puberty. And I just thought, wow, there's more people that, if you have an experience, there's probably millions of people around the world that have the same experience, but you just don't know it until you put yourself out there.
Mm-hmm. And you were going back earlier and talking about like how representation matters. And I feel like a lot of these songs are going to go into areas and territories that a lot of people in the Asian upbringing are not going to be used to talking about. So I think it's really freeing. And I love how your music, they go even deeper. They explore complexity of relationships. And I've taken a look at some of those tracks. So you've got songs like Fit and Better Version. And you've got something poking fun at this main character syndrome and Mute Me, and even confronting the dark side of online fame and Shout It Out. These are songs that these audiences are wanting to hear, and it's so great that someone is out there doing it, and who looks like you doing it as well. And Aiko Tomi, I'm just wondering, are there any career highlights that you want to share? Because I know that's might be a secondary part of the music, or maybe it's the primary part of your music, but these things are important when you're wanting to share your music out in the world. We need people that are supporting us, and sometimes these accolades and these peer industry recognition really matter. So tell us about some of these highlights that you've had.
Wow. So, okay. I think that as an independent artist, who doesn't really have like a machine or like a big team or anything behind them, and you're just sort of, making your music, and there's so many parts to getting the art out there and so many hats that we have to wear. And really, it's hard to compete, especially these days with, things being so saturated. I mean, I heard there's this new stat that 100,000 songs are being uploaded to Spotify every day. That's crazy, right? And granted, most of those don't get heard, but still 100,000, the number's just staggering. So really, I feel like my hope, of course, yeah, I'd love to build the audience and get the quote quote numbers up and all that stuff. But my hope is to just, continue creating art that I feel aligned with. And, hopefully just whatever I put out, it's things that will resonate with the people that it's meant for. Does that make sense? Like, it's like you're not going to resonate with everyone, and I'm not exactly creating the most what do you call it? Like, it's not the most big market mainstream pop. but I really do hope that the people who it's meant for, or anyone who would resonate, and actually I don't even know who that is. Like, I would assume that would be people like myself, Asian diaspora, like, somebody who's Asian in background but grew up in a Western environment. But who knows? Like, there's probably a lot of other people who maybe immigrants who aren't Asian. Maybe there's people who just have a small chest. Like, I feel like the songs have a little bit for everyone, but of course not everyone's going to resonate in the same way, right? So yeah, so I guess my hope is just that the people who listen to it will, one, really feel how real it is, and two, hopefully some of them can resonate and connect with the story. But like, highlights, recently I ran my first event. I've never done that before, and literally, like, shout out to anyone who's ever organized an event. Like, oh my goodness, I can't believe how much I learned. And I feel like that was a huge recent highlight for me, where I ran an event called The Cult of Aiko Tomi. Kurakawa was the first installment. And Gurakawa means creepy cute in Japanese. And it was just so beautiful. Like, I didn't do this on purpose, but it just so happened that the other supporting artists and the DJ after were all, people of color. So there was a Chinese loop based artist who played guitar and did loop. There was a Bangladeshi South Asian singer-songwriter. There was myself, and then there's another Chinese drum and bass DJ. And I just thought it was a really lovely event. It just felt like the beginning of building a community. And I think that's really what it's all about, just connecting with people, and not everything just like online. But like, even the name of that, right? Like the cult of Aiko Tomi, I think it's a little bit like, poking fun at like cults of personality, right?
It's so amazing to talk with you and to hear about your project, and also to get all the insights that kind of led to this and that are kind of pushing it forward. So for our listeners, Aiko Tomi is an artist on the rise. She appears on Smart Magazine, the TD Music Connected series, and Breaking Sound. Aiko Tomi has appeared on Raw Artists Canada. We're so happy for her music, and there is an album out called Animals Awake. It's available on all major streaming platforms and digital music stores. Aiko Tomi, thank you so much for joining us on this podcast, On the Rise, Behind the Lyrics, Beyond the Music. And I really want everybody who's listening to know that there are these incredible artists out there, emerging and established, with these Asian heritages, who are making a really big difference in the community. So thanks so much, Aiko, and I am looking forward to catching you the next time I see you.
So lovely to talk to you, Gina.